We are the Arcturian Collective. Hello and namaste.
Hello.
Namaste.
We thank you for your willingness to co-create with us in this now. How would you like to interact with us in this moment of your time? How may we be of service to you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, it's very exciting to be connecting with you again.
Yes, likewise. It's very nice to see that there's some new faces today.
I was wondering at first, I'm a bit curious about the Arcturian Collective.
Yes.
If you would like to say a few basic things about your collective.
Yes. What do you mean with basic?
Physical, non-physical, density.
We are non-physical. We don't have a bodily form in a sense that is no longer needed for us, although that it's not that something is needed or not, but we're just not that crystallized. We're much more fluid. Sometimes we see that your physical universe, we explain it as it being like ice, so your physical universe is very crystallized, and because of that it's relatively dense, and because of that there's generally a lot of separation between the different parts. This comes with its own game of physicality and what you experience now, both with its ups and downs and its excitements and challenges. We would say that we are, if you compare to water, we are almost in the water to gaseous state. So for us, everything is much more connected. For us, things like space and time are not really a thing. We navigate much more on frequency. If we want to connect with something, we actually know that we are part of all that is, just like all of you are, but since that is so embedded in our knowingness, we in a sense understand that we are all that is, and it is much easier for us to connect to other parts of ourselves, of all that is, simply by focusing our frequency on it. So in that sense we do not need ships, if you want to talk in those terms, because we simply can tune in on certain frequencies and then we are there. Then again, simply by tuning in things also gives a much milder experience. So we never get that physical, or we are not in our current state at least. We can connect to those stages, but because of that there is much more of a unity feeling, a much more fluid feeling, a much more connected feeling in a sense, also to you. Yes. Would you like to know more specifics before we go any further?
Well, I'm wondering, is there where you are you, do you have is there a spiritual evolvement?
There is a growth, there is an expansion of experience, yes. And this is part of that actually, simply by connecting to other parts of ourselves and seeing things from that interaction, but also to hear your perspectives, how you have experienced being part of the collective as well. So in that sense there is always an evolvement. In a sense we would almost say the idea of evolvement is also a bit linear though. From our sense, it's much more play. It's simply the play of beingness, and it doesn't really matter what form we take. We simply know we're always part of all that is, so there is no judgment. And because of that, there is, if you want to speak of it linearly, you could say there is a sense of progress, but it would be a bit weird to say that you can evolve from our state of being, because we simply understand that whatever part of all that is in the now is perfect. So it's always a perfect expression of itself anyway. And why in that sense would you need to evolve? since you're already all it is, you're already perfect. However, there is excitement and there is growth and there is a love, there can be curiosity. And simply by following that, you automatically expand, but through play, we would say.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome.
And I have a question on channeling as well.
Yes.
And I'm referring to the verbal channeling.
Yes.
As we're experiencing here. As can any person or any human connect to any entity or energy in the universe, or is it more that you connect to like the oversoul or anyone that is closer in your...
It's generally a bit of both. It really depends on what is relevant for people. In theory, yes, you are part of all that is. You are, in a sense, already connected to all that is. You simply chose to be in this, in a sense, crystallized form. And because you are so focused in physical reality, because of your focus here, you don't have your focus on the other part. So in that sense, you have forgotten a lot. But in a sense, all that is always available to you. But it's, in a sense, it's the game of physical reality to be so absorbed by your surroundings that all your focus goes into that. And then that, in a sense, creates a disconnection. But the disconnection itself is illusionary from our point of view. Is that answering your question, or where did you want us to go again?
Well, it seems that some that channel have one source of channeling, and some are experiencing a wide range or connecting to many different forms.
Yes.
I mean, would that be...
That is very specifically for person to person. It is very much where the individual growth is perceived to be. So sometimes we introduce this concept of archetypes when it comes to connecting to ET races, for example. And the Arcturian energy, in a sense, is, from an archetypal point of view, it's how to combine unconditional love with wisdom, and how do you blend those two in a way that creates, in a sense, the most win-win-win situations, that creates the most alignment for all elements involved. However, you also have the lion beings, for example, while their signature frequency is much more about the development of courage, the development of being who you are, and be totally unapologetic for that. You should be it in a moral way, of course, but simply totally owning who you are, and to not be afraid to show that to the world and go in. So it is really dependent on where the individual is, what is relevant for the individual to integrate next. So that can be very dependent on what people will connect to. But in principle, you are able to connect to anything. But since you are able to connect to anything, what you will connect to is actually what is most relevant for you. And you find what is most relevant for you simply by following that curiosity, that joy, that excitement. And then be open to what you connect to.
Yes, that makes sense. That's a good answer. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
This is my first time ever speaking to ET.
Yes.
It's very exciting.
It's our first time to connect with you through this channel, at least.
Oh, great. I was wondering, why am I so drawn to the alternative topic? And why am I here? Is there a special reason?
What do you mean with special?
The starseed reason?
Yes, definitely. You are definitely connected to those energies if we can say that. And we would almost say almost everybody here who has this sincere curiosity in this is generally leading you back to either where you've came from, but also this is very linear. But in a sense, what happened, to give a bit of a big picture, you as a collective, or the collective of humanity on Earth, kind of evolves all the time. And what happens in a sense is you have reached a moment as a collective of your evolution that you have opened up the total map of your planet, in a sense. You know where all the parts are, you've connected to all the different people, you're starting to integrate all these different energies. So in that sense, you're almost not done, but you are in the middle, or we would almost say past the middle of that level of this global consciousness. Now, once that is fully integrated, what starts to happen is that you need something new for your growth. And this is very common for a collective like you on Earth. What happens then is, once this global connection and this integration is well on its way, then the next step is, in a sense, to start connecting to ET races that are, in a sense, in a linear sense, a bit further than you, a bit more evolved than you, either spiritually or technically or both, so that you can connect to them and you can start to integrate those lessons. Now, a lot of people here have, in a sense, incarnated with some of these energies already available, because you knew this was going to be a theme you could choose on your planet in this incarnation. So that is definitely also the case for you. Is there something you would like to know more specifically about this?
Thank you for the answer. Yeah, I'm just a little bit curious about kids.
Yes.
Is it true that all the new kids that's born these days are starseeds of some sort, or is that not correct?
It is. You could see it like that. It is a bit, since, like, let's say 50 years ago, you knew that as a soul incarnates here, it kind of knows what options are available. It doesn't necessarily mean that you connect to those options. You might miss them, or there might be other paths you actually need to integrate before. But what we just said, in a sense, was like 50 years ago. Now you have integrated so much more already that this theme of connecting to other species has become much more relevant. So if a child is born in this time, it is very difficult to not be involved in that theme, because it's going to be a theme in your collective. Mm-hmm. So then, looking back, souls know this. So if souls are aware that this is what the collective that they're incarnating in, that this is something that is, let's say, 80% available for them, like there's an 80% chance that this will be very relevant for the collective, then in a sense the children choose to incarnate here. So we would almost say it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly cause and effect, because it's not that all children born now are starseeds, but in a sense, on one level, before they incarnate, they know that this is going to be a theme that's going to be relevant for your planet. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, you could translate it as, yes, they are all starseeds, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Can I just ask one question about your Arcturian Collective?
Of course.
I was wondering, how come you have access to all information, past, present and future? I know that it's only exists now. Yes. I know that the linear time is an illusion.
Yes.
But is there... can you tell everything? Do you know everything?
Not really. We only know what is relevant for us in this now, but we do know how to connect with things. But also, it might be a bit the same with you, like when you grow up, in the beginning you need to learn to walk. And that is very exciting and challenging, and you go up and down. But, 5 years later, it's like second nature to you. And of course you know how to walk, but in a sense, because it's already integrated, it also becomes, in a sense, less relevant. Mm-hmm. So this is a bit the same with learning how to navigate frequencies in yourself. Like, we went into this a bit the last channeling as well. Like, you can, in a sense, pick timelines depending on controlling your own frequency. Mm-hmm. And once people become aware of that and they start to pick their frequency in an intentional way, so they practice gratitude, they work with shadow aspects, they follow their excitement, all of these things are tools to increase that frequency, and by doing that you open up new timelines for yourself that are exciting to you. So in that way, once you've learned that, then you can still pick a timeline where there is a lot of knowledge, but that isn't that exciting. So it's available to you, or you can walk the path. You don't know the specifics of it, but you know that it is available within your realm of experiences that you could have. And that is a bit the same with how we would answer your question. So in a sense, we know that if we wanted to connect to a certain piece of information, we could get there. But how to get there might actually be to incarnate in a physical form, for example. If that is not too confusing.
Yeah, but it's not like a knowledge bank that you tap into, like the field or something, that you actually just go and browse and find the information. You have to resonate with the...
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
okay.
Definitely. And also in a sense, but this is very much the crystallized experience, you are all that is to begin with. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not an external, internal thing. Mm-hmm. You are it all now already. Mm. The channel often refers to the book from Ken Wilber, who described it in No Boundary Awareness. Like, all your boundaries, even your sense of self, is just the concept of your mind. Mm. Like, you breathe in oxygen, so in a sense you are your environment. Without your environment you wouldn't last a minute. But because your mind likes to conceptualize things, and this is also a part of the game of physical reality and your brain, because your mind likes to conceptualize things, it creates an outside world and a me, and then within the me you create a lot of other concepts that you build upon. But if you take all those concepts away, and some people experience this, for example in a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience, you can actually connect to these other states of awareness that you are at the same time, and then it might become more real for you as well.
Great, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Har du ett spørsmål? Har du ett spørsmål?
How is life on Earth part of a bigger plan?
Yes, but everything
How?
is. How? Well, in a sense it's a bit of an experiment, and it's what we said before, it's this crystallization. How could we describe this? Simply by being disconnected from source makes a whole set of new experiences possible. So we would almost say, like, it's a option you could choose in, for example, a computer game. And from all that is, from our perspective, there isn't really a goal. It's just play. So if you know that there's this play available where you can incarnate in this physical universe, and you can have the illusion that you're disconnected from all that is, and you are this little monkey that needs to put food in its mouth and have this whole connection to all these other little parts around it, that is actually very exciting for a lot of perspectives, to have that, in a sense, that crystallized perspective on all that is. Just as it is very interesting to be an ant or to be a leaf on a tree from our perspective. So it is almost a bit like you can put on a lot of different suits. And sometimes you like to dress up in a beautiful gown, and sometimes you just want to wear shorts. And sometimes you need to put on a big winter coat. So it is also a bit dependent of the soul perspective, where you incarnate, why you incarnate. And humanity and the collective has a set of experiences available that is unique in the universe. And in that sense, you could say that, yes, there is a meaning to it, and how is a bit difficult to answer, because the beingness of itself, the beingness of the experience of having a human life on Earth, that in its sense is the how, because that unique experience adds to all that is, and that in itself makes it valuable from our perspective, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense. And also, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Also, you said earlier that it was a larger plan. It is.
There is, on some... How do we say this? There is and there isn't. This might sound a bit paradoxically, but in a sense, everything in all that is a unique expression of it. And so everything within all that is has value in simply being itself. Being this unique perspective, being this unique experience. That is the play, that is the fun, that is where the expansion in a sense is. So in that sense, everything is part of a bigger plan, if you like to frame it that way. We have noticed that humans often seem occupied about, in a sense, am I important? And we would say, yes, you are. And we ourselves would never ask that question, because we are so connected to all that is that we do not feel that we need to earn importance. And we also, it is in a sense very interesting for us that how we see it is that all that is incarnates, it forgets a lot about its own connection, and then it might feel disconnected, and then it believes it needs to earn importance from the outside world. While in reality, you being you is all the worthiness and all you will ever need, in a sense. So the worthiness is never something that needs to be earned. And then, if we start there, there are of course some practical issues to how to survive as a human entity, and also how to behave and ensure the survival of the human entity in a group and on a collective scale. So there are some gains in there as well. But in general, simply being yourself and understanding that being you is in itself the worthiness that you will always have with you. That's something nobody can ever take away from you. Then again, since you do work with a lot of concepts, some people can be taught that they are not worthy. And that in itself is a game of limitation. We don't judge it because it gives a whole new realm of experience as well. But for example, if I could convince you that you are not worthy unless you do what I say, then we created the game of slavery, mental slavery. And this game has been played on your planet quite a bit. But from our perspective, if people would simply be connected to their own inner selves, which is available for everybody, then they don't, in a sense, need the approval from the outside, and then a lot of these games will fall away immediately. And this is actually something your planet is going through now. This idea of self-empowerment, this idea of loving yourself, understanding your own worthiness, and through yourself, your own personal connection with all that is, not through a priest, not through a politician, not through a parent.
Yes. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Can I ask a question about Gaia?
Yes.
Our planet? I know that we are making a mess of it.
Yes.
And we're not proud of that. So, I was wondering...
Every child spills of milk every now and then. So
True.
Don't worry too much about it either.
Okay, so you're saying that we will be able to fix this problem, or will it happen through this phenomenon that some people refer to as the event? Have you...
Well, there are various paths available, but in general, not to insult humanity, but you're not that powerful either, not as a collective. Like, you can do a certain amount of damage to your physical surroundings, but in a sense, if you do that, it does not aid your own survival, so in that sense it will ensure the collapse of your own population if you do not learn that lesson, and then Gaia will restore itself. It might take a couple of thousands or 10,000 years, but in a sense it's not a humanity versus Gaia situation. It is simply, we would almost say, a teenager that doesn't understand that if it's not being responsible and it just takes and trashes, that it will suffer its own consequences. And this is not from a judgmental point of view, but this is simply a teenager learning how to grow up, and that what you do does have consequences. But Gaia itself is very loving of you, it's very happy with you, and in that sense Gaia itself always will invite you to play with her. Take off your shoes in summer and dance in the mud, or connect to the trees, or connect to the water. Gaia will always be there, just like a parent will always be there for its children. So Gaia will always be there for you. Gaia knew what it was getting into. In a sense. So in that sense, it is great if you learn to produce food, for example, in a more constructive way, and if you learn to waste less and recycle more, so you can take better care of the other beings you share your planet with, so you don't need to feel this need to dominate. But this is in a sense a effect of this game of slavery that you also project on each other. Like, when people are disconnected, they often try to dominate stuff around them to gain connection. But once people understand that that trick doesn't work to begin with, and that they can simply tap in, start meditating, connect to the trees, connect to the water, and simply tune into that frequency, then that whole need to try to dominate others or to try to dominate nature will fall away much more quicker. So Gaia is definitely very much inviting you to look for ways that are more constructive, also for your own long-term survival, not necessarily on her behalf, but it will simply be smarter from all perspectives to learn this. But don't put any guilt on yourself or on others. See it simply as a child growing up, and that this is something that is natural, a process you need to go through. But what were you asking about the event?
Yes, there's, I don't know if everybody else around this table have heard about this, but there's something that in the alternative community is referred to as the event, which is supposed to be a cleansing process of some sort, and is also coming with the race of consciousness for humanity. So I'm just wondering if this is any truth to this from your perspective.
In a sense, we could say that, because when you raise awareness, people actually understand that, oh, wait a minute, I live on this planet. If I use it in a way that is not renewable, then my children's children will not be able to survive here. So if people learn that lesson, I mean, you can even learn this lesson purely from self-interest. There doesn't need to be a lot of altruism, but simply to understand your long-term survival, look at that. Then the more people are integrating that consciousness and start acting on it as well, but we would say only act on it from, not from a sense of guilt, but from a sense of excitement. So don't act on things because other people tell you need to, or because you are shamed or guilt-tripped into it, but really go into your own heart and maybe go out to nature, connect with nature, and then see what do you feel and where is this excitement, how can you interact better with Mother Nature. In that sense, the more people that integrate that goes together with a raise in awareness, so in a raising of consciousness, and then people will actually start acting differently. And in a sense you already see that. A lot of the shops around you, if you compare that from now with 10 years ago, there is already much more options available to choose, options that actually take more care of other human beings and that take more care of the planet. And maybe people even become much more minimalistic, so they don't feel this need to consume material stuff so much, because they learn to connect to nature, to themselves, to others around them, so they don't feel that they need to fill up this emptiness with material goods. But this is a process that both individuals go through, and as individuals go through it, they will have an effect on the collective, and then the whole collective can shift on that point as well. And you could call that the event if you want. But we do want to stress that this is something that the first step needs to be taken by you as an individual, and then by the collective. So if humanity takes steps on their excitement and understands a part of these lessons, then there could actually start to come in help from the outside, but only when humanity has raised its own frequency high enough that it is ready for that. And again, from our perspective, there are no judgments. Sometimes collectives fail at these things, and collectives simply do not understand how to interact with their natural environment. And then a collective can collapse, and then in a sense the lesson can be approached again from a slightly different angle to see if they do learn it. So it might take a collective a couple of times to get this right.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, just to come back to the event, I wonder, will this also involve a dimensional shift sometime in the future, that we actually move up to a higher dimension on the planet?
You could say that. But a lot of what we just said applies here as well. Sometimes humans see this as an external thing. Like, okay, I am sitting here on my couch, and in the external world the frequency is raised and I will go through a dimensional shift. And then that will influence me. And then suddenly there are other things available. But that is actually not how it works. How it works is that you understand that your physical reality is, in a sense, a holographic mirror. And that what you put in is what you get back. So what you see in your physical environment is, to a huge degree, a reflection of your own inner frequency. And if there is something in your outer world that you do not like, then we advise people to do some shadow work on that, or to integrate that, to look at that and to integrate that. Because if you do that, then we talked a bit about this again in the last channeling. So the moment you kind of integrate these things that you judge or you do not like in your external environment, and you integrate them here, then you learn the lesson. Then you don't need to walk that timeline. The universe doesn't need to, your mirror doesn't need to show you that whole timeline, because you get the lesson quicker. The same applies for understanding your own frequency and how to raise that and how to stabilize that. Once you start doing that consciously, you can actually learn how to choose timelines. And learning to choose timelines is actually a part of the next dimension. Because then you can navigate time in a sense. Not time in the linear sense, but time from a frequency perspective, to attract the timelines that are relevant for your growth in a kind of growth from a positive way, from the curiosity. So you're actually, in a sense, doing that already now, simply by being exposed to new frequencies, by talking about this now, by reading books about it, by trying to get your own mind around these concepts, by integrating this in yourself. You're actually shifting your own dimension. And again, if enough people on the individual level do this, and they take action upon this, and they teach it to the people around them, then the whole collective can shift as well. And to come back a bit to both your questions, on a collective level you can also choose. We think that Bashar has referred to this as the splitting of the tracks, and that is a option. So the people who have learned these lessons very well and are integrating this pretty quickly, they can, in a sense, collectively start creating a reality that is more relevant for them. And then other people who still feel that they need to dominate others and that they need to wage war to feel connected, to believe that that will bring them happiness, that that somehow will bring them alignment, then those people can start to create that reality for them as well. In general though, seeing where your collective is at the moment, what will most likely happen is that those lowest energies will either simply disappear, or when they die they will not incarnate on your planet again, because those lessons of separation have become much less relevant for your collective. So if it's relevant for such a soul to have such an experience, it will actually incarnate on a different planet where that game can be played again from a different angle for them, so they can, in a sense, get a couple of more perspective on it, so they can integrate that later on. Does that make sense?
Yes. And for me, more of a personal matter.
Yes.
What would be, for me, the most efficient way to work through my blockages?
In a sense, to simply follow your joy to play, but can you be specific? Is there any... Generally, blockages are often judgments. A judgment on either yourself or on the outside world. So simply seeing what thought, what definitions you have can really help, and play a bit with that. But do you feel comfortable going into something specific? Or?
I think more of, for me, to the most efficient way to move into harmony, more on a general basis, to be happier and more balanced, is what I'm aiming for. So
yes,
if you can say something about, yes, what would be the most efficient way for me to achieve that?
Well, there are like 1,001 ways.
Yes, of course.
Is there anything specifically you're very curious about in the moment? Because in a sense we will simply refer you to the follow your excitement formula.
Yes.
And the more honest you are towards yourself, like sometimes there can be a judgment from yourself on a certain excitement, that you feel like, why am I interested in this subject? Like, I feel that I shouldn't, but if you check in with your heart and there actually is this excitement to what you might consider a negative subject, it might, if you feel that this is really something you're interested in, then we would actually invite you to go into it, because it could be something you need to integrate still. So, if you have certain blockages, sometimes those can be of judgments of a certain excitement you feel, but you do not allow yourself, either because your own definitions, or maybe because of definitions of your surrounding, that you are afraid that they might disapprove of that. Again, obviously always act with integrity, so respect the free will and freedom to make choices of both yourself and all the people you are involved in. But if you communicate very clearly with all parties involved, and you are very honest about what you want, and you give all other parties their freedom to make up their own mind and to choose and to say, yes, I do not want to join you in this exploration, or yes, I would love to join you in this exploration. If you do it like that, then you can explore any subject in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I think I have some experiences for the last weeks about frequencies and following my excitement and not following it.
Yes, that's a good experience.
Yeah, I've been depressed and very angry at the system, and but I've made a meditation myself, taking part from books and courses, and it's very powerful for me. It changes my mood in just maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Yes, and we would like to thank you that you allow yourself to do that, because if you allow yourself to create your own permission slips, you can really start to accelerate in a sense, and it becomes a lot of fun, or we assume you had fun as well, but if you can be that playful about it, like, oh, wait a minute, I can, you feel this sense of control, and that can be very important.
Yeah, I like it very much, and like this law attraction topic, visualize very powerful, and pictures, sounds, and emotions, feelings in the body. It's very good, and yes.
Is there a question in there, or was
no,
this more a statement?
Really,
No.
I don't think so. Yeah, maybe in connection to that, how to maybe the things I'm visualizing on is right and correct, but I would also like to know more about my own. Maybe it's more like an intuition or some more other things. I want to get better, have better intuition, and better openness for my own higher channels or something like that.
Yes. We do feel that you are working with that very well, and in that sense, if you continue the trajectory you're on, like within a year, that will improve hugely for you.
Yes.
If that helps, in a sense, without pointing to specific permission slips, because we feel, in a sense, that you have a lot of relevant information that you could explore, and you know how and when to explore it if it is the right time for it.
Yes, it's very fun for me, because this is information that I've been working on for some years now, but I haven't used them myself really. No. So just for others, and but I took it and read it just some few days ago, and wow, it's amazing.
Yes.
I have to use it myself, and
it's very good that you do, but also this, don't put any judgment on that either. This is something that is very common, especially, and we feel a bit that you are that, especially if you approach the world from a mental, through a mental way, then simply getting a mental understanding of things is a very good first step. And then if you can integrate it further by taking action upon it, you embody it more.
Yes,
then you will gain experience.
During this meditation, I have almost like a Kundalini feeling in my body. Great. At the same time. It's very powerful.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And I have a question about advanced technology.
Yes.
That is not known for most people here on Earth, like anti-gravitation and free energy and so on.
Yes.
Can it be used? Can I or people or friends invent such technology very easily?
Well, not very easily, but this is a bit both where you as an individual are, but also where the collective is.
Yes, because it can be used as weapons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you invent nice little airplanes to bomb weddings on the other side of the world, that is a indication of where your collective is and what you do with your technology. And in that sense, ETs are watching you as well. And you know, if you give a kid a fork and it starts poking its brother with it, then you're not necessarily very inclined to teach them how to use a chainsaw. So this is very much where you are as a collective and an individual, but a lot of these technologies are definitely, we would almost say, like, you're moving into this, but this is like slow, but certainly. Simply by learning to channel, you can actually connect to beings that could assist people that are very interested in the subject. We would then say, like, if you as an individual feel very excited about it, then try to learn as much about it as you can. Try to also make things physical, try to experiment with things, and because of that you will actually increase your own bank of concepts and knowledge about a subject. And when another consciousness wants to channel you information, you will actually, it can only channel the next step in a sense. So you can only channel the next step. So the more people here learn about this themselves, then it does become easier for other consciousnesses to feed you the next step. So again, with this, it's also a bit, you as an individual need to take the first step. And you might have noticed this before, like when you really go into a subject and you really feel it's from the heart, it's something you're interested in, when you take that first step, you will see that people pop up in your environment that can help you with it. So, or you might even have a dream where you get a solution. So we definitely recommend that if you are excited about this and it comes from the heart, then really dig into it and really hang on to it and see, play with it and integrate it. And then if the collective, because there are checks here, like if you invent something great, but you know, a part of the government simply takes it over, you disappear in a black bag, and suddenly the psychopaths use it to suppress a huge part of the collective even more, then that is not something we would inflict upon you. So sometimes people see it as, oh, they don't want to help us, but this can be a very precarious thing. This is something that needs to be done in a with a lot of checks and balances.
Yeah, I see.
Yes.
I think Nikola Tesla invented things like that.
Absolutely. He was definitely very connected to these other realms where a lot of this information is available. And also sometimes individuals incarnate specifically with a goal and those connections to advance the next level here on Earth. And if you are familiar with the work of Dolores Cannon, called the 3 Waves of Volunteers, in a sense, a lot of children being born now have the potential connections to actually integrate you also on a more crystallized level in the galactic community. So if it's relevant for them, and if the collective, in a sense, if it gets green lighted, by the collective, because the collective itself knows how to tap in and how to connect themselves instead of trying to dominate their surroundings, then
Yes.
a lot of these children can actually start to integrate a lot of these technologies on a very rapid basis. We're talking like 20, 30 years where a lot of these huge improvements could be potentially made.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, well, thank you very much for being here and allowing us to interact with you as well.
Thank you. I've already gotten answers for so many things I was wondering about, and it's really nice to feel so at ease and at home.
That's great to
I've
hear.
got a couple of questions around the star families.
Yes?
Or is it many different star families? Or is it one?
Your personal connections? You mean? Yes. Well, in a sense, since you are all it is, you're connected to all of them. But we do feel like individually, we would almost read a bit that you're connected to the Arcturian energies as well, a bit of the Pleiadians. We would say those are the two most dominant connections we read with you now. But do you have specific questions about that, or is there something, some statements you would like to make, or?
I would like to learn more about it. So how can I connect more or learn more?
Yes. Well, the guided meditation you did earlier today can be one way. Reading the book or doing channel exercises can really help. Cleaning up your own frequency, in a sense, like going through your definitions that don't suit you anymore, can really help. Following your excitement can really help. We generally also really recommend taking up a hobby that involves creative expression, whether it is dance, art, snowboarding, whatever makes you feel in the moment in some way, in a somewhat creative expression, can really help this process as well. Writing poems, is there something you're already doing or that you feel attracted to in that field?
No, not really.
Do you enjoy singing or writing or drawing?
I do enjoy singing, but I don't like to do it.
It doesn't need to be for an audience. But in general, doing something like that, or Tai Chi, some body movements, that can really help those connections as well. And why is because, in a sense, if you're very focused with art, in a sense you are very focused on the external world, but it also really comes from the heart. So it kind of opens up this channel connection as well. And a lot of people might experience that if they learn a skill in that way and they become very good at it, that they almost feel like something is coming through them. And that is a very good indicator of being connected.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. Do you feel you have some paths to explore?
Yes.
Yes. Well, happy exploring.
Hmm?
Happy exploring.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward, in that sense, to connect with you more also through your own connection.
Thank you.
Know that you are guided in that sense, and that your guides are, if you ask them, they are definitely very willing to support you in that connection also.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question about Antarctica.
Yes.
Is there any mysterious things going on beneath the ice?
Define mysterious.
Out of this world, or ancient ruins, or something like that? Why are so many people going down there?
Yes, there's definitely some observation basis, for example. We are a bit hesitant to go into too much detail, but if the question is there stuff from, in that sense, out of this world going on there, then we would definitely say yes.
Can you say anything about the crashed spaceship?
We don't feel in that area, it's more like a basis. It's a bit like, and not to judge or devalue humanity in any way, but it's a bit like some of your humans like to go to the Serengeti and build a camouflage hut there so they can observe the nature and the different elements, the different animals, plants, how they interact with each other in their natural state. And there are some places on Earth where certain ET races can do that here. And we would say there is one on Antarctica to do that. And it's a bit, in a sense, what is happening now to your collective is that since you've integrated your global consciousness, I mean, you're not there yet, but this is a bit of a fluid thing. But since a lot of people have integrated a lot of that global consciousness, then there are different paths that point you to the next level and how you want to engage with that. So one level is channeling, simply aligning yourself and connecting to your own higher selves, connecting to other consciousness around you that can guide you and support you. And then again, we also learn very much from you, so it's an equal exchange, we would say. It's not that somebody is higher or lower, it's simply because also we understand that you are part of all it is. So a lot of ETs that understand that the more you raise your frequency and your awareness, that will bring this part of all that is into more alignment and consciousness, and that is fun for everybody. So that is one path. Then there is another path that might go a bit more through the drama, but a bit more through the Orion path, a bit more about who controls access to what, who keeps what secret, who has which information, how do they use it. So you can have this grand chess game of intrigue, and we would say that Antarctica, and in that sense people like David Wilcock, make that path more available. So if you're attracted to that, then that is definitely an option to explore this as well.
But this is a collective path you're talking about, right? Or consensus reality?
On your planet, these are different paths to, in a sense, the next level, and how you want to interact with this.
Okay. And from there you can basically pick your own timeline individually. Because I'm a little confused about the consensus reality versus your own path, in a sense.
That is, yes. What would you like to know about it specifically? Because in a sense, the consensus reality is always experienced through your own individual reality to begin with, and where you focus upon. This has much, again, to do with this idea of frequencies and picking your own timelines. So, to take this path of intrigue, for example, like we would say that is more the Antarctica path, are there elements in that game that you feel very strongly about, like in a negative way or in a judging way?
Yeah, well, it's more like I've always been fascinated with, drama and science fiction, and but I've never been afraid of this kind of energy. It's just it's interesting.
Yes.
So I never ever been afraid of it. So
No, it's
just
not necessarily
fascinating.
fear. It can also be simply, and this again, this is a lot of the fun of the game as well, like to embody parts of that. But why we're asking the question is that the moment there is a judgment, and it doesn't need to be a fear judgment, it can be any judgment upon another party, like, oh, they should open up this information. Is it true or not? You can actually learn a lot there about yourself, why you are attracted to it, and then utilize that to raise your own awareness quicker.
Exactly.
So in that sense, it is also a reflection. You create, or not create, but you attract yourself to that timeline, to that path, because it's relevant for you and because there's a lot for you to learn there. And that's why you engage in it. Now, the quicker you can integrate it, then the quicker you can see the progression of that timeline. And that can go in multiple ways.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, we have some. We think we can do 10 minutes more. The channel feels pretty good. So, if there are more questions, at least. Let's say we do 3 more questions.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
So the Arcturian theme, so to speak, you would say was the integration of love and wisdom, was that
Yes.
it? Yeah. So do you know of a collective or entities that have the, say, theme of authenticity?
Yes. Or a collective. But yes, there's definitely that. A bit the Lyran beings, we would say. Also a bit the Pleiadian theme. Because learning to really love yourself is very important also to dare to be authentic. So self-love, self-acceptance in all your parts, also your shadow parts, also the dark thoughts, also the impulses that have been suppressed by yourself or by society, that in a sense are suppressed and not seen. Once you see it and then integrate it in a healthy way, they can actually help you a lot in following that excitement and embodying yourself. So self-love is a very important part, but also then and we would say that is the Pleiadian theme, but then also the development of courage. And the limitation of loving yourself and everybody else is that you don't discern, because you simply want to love everything, and that is a good thing. But if you love everything, you attract, in a sense, everything, because you don't choose. So often after this self-love, what you get is a couple of challenges that show you that you really need to decide what you do and do not want to interact with. And that in itself often requires a bit of courage. It acquires discernment, and it also sometimes you need to simply say no to certain people, and those people can reflect back to you that is very much not loving that you're doing that, and then it can create this nice little conflict, because I'm such a loving person, but this person says I'm not loving because I don't want to deal with their drama anymore. So we would say if that is a theme you're excited about, then it's mostly both the Lion beings and the Pleiadians that can assist people that are exploring those themes.
Interesting, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Could you say something about ET races I'm connected to?
Yes? What do you feel you're connected to? Because we see you have a whole team around you.
Well, I have seen very vaguely at some rare occasions some blue beings.
Yes?
They are more like bold and quite tall.
Yes.
I suspect that I'm connected to Pleiadians and maybe Wingmakers or Syrians, but that is only my guess. And also vague feeling that something is actually beyond this universe.
Yes. Like non-physical, or yes?
Actually, from another universe.
Yes.
In a sense.
Andromeda, or?
Well, that's another galaxy, but I have a feeling actually from a different universe somehow. I'm not sure if that's right. It's just a vague feeling. Other than that, I'm not sure.
You can try to read your energy a bit and see what comes through.
All right.
Yes.
We,
in a sense, we do feel that you do have a lot of connections, in a sense. And the Sirian connection, Sirius, in a sense, is a kind of a incarnation portal. So through Sirius, actually, and in a sense also a bit through Arcturius, a lot of other beings and energies come through Sirius to connect with people in this galaxy. So we definitely feel you have both connections there and beyond.
And what about...
It is a bit difficult for the channel to translate those energies, though, because he does not really have a conceptual framework for it.
I see.
What we do feel is that there's a lot of green energy coming through.
I see. And like elven or some lion energy?
Sirius itself, Lyran, is directly connected to Sirius, so a lot of the lion energy often is connected to Sirius. Also a bit to Egypt. So if you've ever been in Egypt, or if you feel excited about that, that could help to create more awareness of those connections within yourself as well, to kind of experience those frequencies.
I see.
There's definitely Pleiadian also, but we almost feel that a lot of what the Pleiadians have to teach you've already integrated.
Mm-hmm.
So they're more like buddies, but you're very much on a same level as them. So it's not that much that teaching role anymore from them.
What do you feel is the most dominant?
We would say the Sirius connection, this green energy that comes through, that would be most dominant. Sometimes also a lot of this might sound very... We'll see what makes sense. Like Gaia itself is a certain energy. You could say that her whole frequency can be pinpointed as a concept and then as a consciousness. Now, that also happens to the sun, for example. So you could say that the sun has a consciousness. Now, this can also happen for galaxies itself, like a whole galaxy can have a consciousness. And we feel that this green energy is coming through is much more of a order of that kind of beingness. So it's not so much a individual or a race, but it's much more a collective of a lot of life experience within it that somehow you are connected to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And what we do recommend, because this might actually be easier for you to connect to that energy yourself than through this channel. So what you could really do is exercise a lot of these meditations and channeling, and then you can connect this yourself. Mm-hmm. Also, if you have any impulse to write or to draw from when you feel connected to this energy, then do that as well, because then you can actually crystallize these energies a bit more in your universe, and that might make it more concrete. And then it becomes... You kind of need to invent the concepts and the language to express that energy in this reality. And we feel that in a sense since you are connected to that the most, you're in that sense also the best person to ground that energy more and more here. So anything you can do to physically express that energy that comes through is useful in that process.
I see. Thank you very much.
Yes. The last question?
If anybody, no. It's partly the first question I asked you.
Yes.
It's the same that he asked about my origins, but I didn't pinpoint exactly. So I'm very curious about this.
Yes. In a sense, we feel there's a Pleiadian connection, but also a bit of an Orion reptilian connection. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
If that, especially this kind of might explain a bit why you have been interested in also these kind of social engineering games, because that is a theme Orion explored very well. And in a sense, we would almost say that the reptilians in your part of the universe are masters in that game, and have been, but they have also evolved a lot. So in that sense, we almost feel that you are also helping that collective understand that better by integrating more and more of that, and also through your Pleiadian connections. So it's a very strong energy going back and forth between that. In that sense, you could almost say that you're a bit of a scout for those energies here, in a positive way though, so very much to help them heal as well.
Thank you.
Yes, was that enough, or would you like to know more specifics?
Can you say what kind of reptilian race? Or is it many different types?
Are you familiar with Trap?
No.
Trap from Rob Gautier?
No.
It might be interesting to look into that a bit.
Yeah.
The channel can give you that connection. It's not that exact energy, but it's an energy that is very much connected to that. We would almost say that the civilization of Trap is, in a sense, has been a big inspiration to them, and they try to integrate a lot of those lessons into their own society.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, then it's time to say goodbye. We thank you very much for your willingness to have co-created with us in this now. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. And we're looking forward to co-create with you in the next now. Goodbye and namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.